Hi guys, my name is Rich, and this is the MHB'S Arsenal's podcast. If you are wondering what the MHB stands for, that is an abbreviation taken from some of my other content creation that I do in my spare time, and it's kind of unrelated to do with Arsenal really. It's just a name I thought up with when I started this podcast. I do have an Arsenal podcast on Spotify, but I thought I'd kind of move that podcast over to YouTube as well, because what I'm finding is that Spotify doesn't actually seem to be getting as much kind of traction as I would like for the for my podcast on there. So I thought I'd give YouTube a go as well. I have another YouTube channel which is going fairly well, which is, as I just indicated, is unrelated to Arsenal and football. It's completely different. On this podcast, I aim to talk about Arsenal FC predominantly. I will also talk about Premier League as well, football in general, and some cricket and darts as well, which I enjoy in my spare time. Darts in particular, as the World Championships is coming up next month. But in this first episode, I am going to talk about Arsenal's win at the weekend, which was a 1-0 victory away at Brentford. This was a good result for Arsenal in the end because Brentford at home are a particularly difficult team to play against. I saw a statistic on social media that since the start of last season, the only team to beat them at home from the top six was, in fact, Arsenal. So the likes of Manchester United, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Spurs have all gone to Brentford and failed to win there over the last couple of seasons. So this win shouldn't be underestimated. It was a game that didn't have that much quality in it. In fact, it was a very poor game, with both teams creating very little. Brentford's two chances both came from poor mistakes on our part. The first one was obviously a bad mistake from Aaron Ramsdale as he took a bad touch, which led to Declan Rice clearing the Brentford shot off the line before it ricocheted just wide off the Brentford forward, Visser. Arsenal got away with that. We also got away with another bad moment in the second half after Zinchenko made a poor mistake, but then bailed himself out by clearing the ball off the line with what was a very good clearance in the end. So Brentford didn't really create much, although you would think they would be pretty happy with their performance overall. From our perspective, we sort of played well in fits and starts. We had a good period before half time where Leo Trossard had a goal ruled out for offside. I have to say, I'm not convinced it was offside, but it was given. And then we had a decent spell in the second half as well, at the start of the second half, but generally it was quite lackadaisical, and again, our tempo was pretty ordinary throughout the game. We seemed to play with a real lack of urgency, which is kind of frustrating from an Arsenal fan's perspective. But going by some comments that Arteta made in the aftermath of the game, it seemed to be in the plan that we were almost taking our time over throw-ins and corners, because that's kind of what Brentford did, or do, according to Arteta. Now, I think that was a little bit of a peculiar way of going about things, because we were sort of changing our style to combat theirs. And I really would rather we focus on our tempo and our own game before worrying about other teams. One thing that's obviously kind of altering our game a little bit at the moment is the fact that teams are quite clearly doubling up on Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka. They are earmarking that as probably the main danger to them coming from Arsenal. Now, I think Arteta will eventually find a way of exploiting this to our benefit. With Saka and Martinelli taking up 2 players each, that should leave space for people like Gabriel Jesus and Martin Odegaard to exploit. Unfortunately, Martin Odegaard at the moment isn't really at his best. Nowhere near it, in fact. He doesn't look himself. But he will get back to his best because he's too good a player not to. But that's kind of a little bit of a concern at the moment. We're not at our fluent best at the moment, but we're winning and we're top of the league, so we can't complain. And the real plus point from this game was the fact that the winner was scored by Kai Havertz, who, in my opinion, has performed actually really quite well since he came to Arsenal, but he's just not quite got the goals or the assists to sort of back that up. And so he's come under some sort of criticism, really, quite strong criticism from some quarters. But he got his reward with a clever little header and a setup from Bukayo Saka, who, despite being doubled up on, still manages to get 1 or 2 big moments in a game at least, even if he's not as effective as he was last season. And so Havertz won the game for us in the last minute, and that was a really good result for us in the end. We now play Lens in the Champions League on Wednesday, which will be an important game. If we win the group, and with a game to spare. If we drop points, I think we'll still be okay, but we don't really want to be going away to Eindhoven requiring a result, because as we saw in the Europa League last year, that can be a hard game. So let's get the Champions League group sewn up before the final game, which will be then we'll be able to rest some players, which will be good news, obviously. Aaron Ramsdale will come under some criticism for his mistake against Brentford, but I actually thought as the game went on, he kind of grew in stature, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that at the moment. He won't, it's not been an easy time for him, but I think most Arsenal fans really like Ramsdale as a keeper and as a bloke, because he's really brought into Arsenal as a football club, and he, you can see he takes pride in playing for Arsenal, so we really want him to succeed. At the moment, that number 1 jersey, it's by no means done and dusted, because, let's be honest, David Raya has not nailed that position down yet. So Ramsdale could regain that number 1 shirt. So I hope at the very least he remains at the club for the rest of the season. Yeah, so this has been my first podcast on YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to try and do these sort of podcasts regularly when I have some spare time and I'm not working on my other content creation. So I'll always try and do a podcast before and after a game. So I'll do a match preview for Lens, and then I'll do a match review after. And then if there's a big story in the sporting world, I'll try and cover it. So thanks for listening, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button.